Hello and welcome to this special show coming to you from New York City. Will China soon overtake America as the world's largest economy? While much of the globe is suffering a financial downturn, the most populous country has become the fastest growing major economy. Even with a little cooling off in recent times, China is expected to grow by 8% this year, continuing 2 decades of extraordinary development. It's brought about a foreign policy known as China's Peaceful Rise, a diplomacy that's played a major role in transforming East Asia, with pockets of influence throughout Africa, the Middle East and Latin America. But many questions remain regarding the political path that China will follow as it transforms economically. Will it become more liberal with its increased prosperity, or could its rise in power lead to a relationship with Washington that's full of tension, mistrust and conflict? Today we explore these issues and ask, what does the rise of China mean for the rest of the world? Remember, you can join the conversation with your questions and comments. Log on to livestation.com/AJE, enter the chat room and take part. And of course, we also welcome your phone calls on the show. Now today we're fortunate to have with us 2 experts with first-hand knowledge of China's rapid rise. Dr. Fan Gang is the man Beijing turns to for economic advice. He's the director of the National Economic Research Institute of the China Reform Foundation and also serves as a consultant to the World Bank. And Dr. Daniel Rosen is a former senior advisor to the White House National Economic Council, where he played a leading role in completing China's accession to the World Trade Organization in 2001. Dr. Rosen is also the principal of the Rhodium Group, which focuses on commercial, economic and policy trends in China. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. Dr. Fan, if I could start with you and ask if in your opinion, China is clearly poised to replace America as the sort of dominant global economy in the upcoming years.
Oh, it's still far away. China now is, in terms of total GDP, only one third of the U.S. economy, if we in the exchange rate terms. And I think about the per capita GDP in particular. China is only about $3,000 US per capita GDP, and the US is something like 40,000. So that means China is still at a very low level of development, struggling with domestic issues, structural problems, unemployment, underemployment. Still 35% of labor force are working in the agricultural, earn only half of the migrant workers, not the white-collar workers, but the migrant workers. So, and the poverty is still there, the income disparity is there, a lot of the structural problems should be addressed. So domestic issues will be still very overwhelming in the coming years.
But certainly its clout on the international market seems to have risen exponentially. It seems to be far, far greater in recent years, even if, as you described, the relative terms are quite small.
Yeah, well, it's a large population anyway. It's a 1.3 billion population, and there is 500 to 600 million rural workers before. Now it's there are still 300 million rural workers there. So in terms of size, it's big, but in terms of the strengths, when you're talking about the global power, you need the strengths. You need something to spend on other things other than the domestic needs. So that's what we think about the global powers.
I think I'll touch on some of those issues you raised in a minute, but Dr. Rosen, good to have you too with us on the show. And I wonder what you feel the cost to America might be in the long run of a rapidly rising China.
Well, I think the costs to the U.S., the benefits to China for that matter, have everything to do with how we react to one another now, next year, over the 10, 15 years to come. If we are working together as partners in a global economy, already most of our most important industries are knit together in production chains where we cooperate. China's fabled export sector power is over 50 or 60% foreign invested enterprises in China doing those exports. It's only a minority of Chinese exports which are done by purely Chinese companies. So who benefits from that? I think what makes the question so interesting that you ask is that our traditional kind of calculus for how we think about national interest isn't quite the same going forward as it was the last time we dealt with a rising power in the world economy. Japan and Germany pre-war, that was an ancient history compared to where we are today. Globalization was not a term of art in those days. Climate change as a common burden confronting us was not even on the horizon at that point. So how we do the arithmetic, whether we see ourselves winning or falling back due to the other success, has everything to do with how we think about the debate.
Now, in terms of the way the US economy has been relatively crippled and other economies around the world, what sort of opportunities does this create for China?
Well, let me start, Riz, by saying that I think what we're seeing right now is China re-emerging to a place that it's traditionally held in the global economy for millennia in the past. So to some extent, we're just getting back to something like a normal situation. The post-World War II era and certainly the post-1989 era have been absolutely exceptional in historical terms with regard to the weight of the U.S. Today, a mere 300 million people on the planet that have so much outsized economic weight in what the planet has done. So, viewed through that lens, I think it's a bit of a different picture than people traditionally debate this issue.
Dr. Fan, in terms of the Chinese leadership, and you know the leadership there very well, what sense is there of confidence or an increased confidence in wanting to be a player on the world stage, to state China's position, to be much more of a visible force?
Well, I think this is a global area, globalization area. Mm-hmm. And China has been on the global stage for, say, 20, 30 years, when China really opened up to the global economy. So actually, the confidence, first of all, coming from that kind of experience or lessons learned from this period, they start to understand the global issue, from the point of view of a great country. And secondly, of course, when you have a growing economic, say, power, you are demanded, actually, to be responsible for things, these things, that things. So how confident, I don't know, but they have to learn. They have to be with others, to have to deal with each others. And that kind of the learning curve, I believe, is something very helpful. And also, they become more knowledgeable during this process of accumulation of the experience and the lessons. So compared to 30 years ago, 20 years ago, I would say people are more confident.
And certainly the new generation, the younger generation of leaders now in power, seem to be more willing to engage. It's not so quiet behind the scenes kind of work now, is it?
Yeah, definitely, because for China, a lot of things are international. A lot of things become global. We are in the global market. We are in WTO. We have to deal with this, including those exchange rate problems, global imbalance problem. We have to deal with that. So you, like or not, you have to be engaged or engage others.
Right. Dr. Riz, one thing that's happened is, of course, the West and the already established, if you like, Western developed economies are going through another sort of turn, if you like, in the corner with climate change, as was mentioned, with looking at more responsible consumption. Just at the time when China and India and some of the other countries like Brazil and so on are rising. What kind of impact is that likely to have, this demand from the West for more responsible consumption, while at the same time the developing economies, the rising powers, are looking to grow as quickly as they can, or at least the best they can?
Well, in the short term, politically, it presents a problem because you have a set of very sophisticated insights that have emerged in rich countries about the quality of the world that we have to be stewards of for decades to come. Meanwhile, you have people who have worked their whole lives just to buy an air conditioner and are now being told maybe they can't plug it in. So that is a politically untenable situation to be in. On the other hand, we look at new generations of technology, which will be ultimately the linchpin of getting us to where we need to go in terms of reducing the amount of carbon we emit. And the question is, how much more expensive is a green power plant than a traditional power plant? We've gone through this painful debate in the U.S. over the China price, that our manufacturers are confronted with these vastly lower prices coming out of China. That's been a problem in the past. In the future, it'll be part of the solution. If the extreme scale of manufacturing in China and India to follow can help drive down the cost of these new generations of technology, then we'll be moving in a direction which is where we need to go. Further, there's many things that China can do and is contemplating doing on issues like climate, and also international development, political stability in Africa, many of the places it gets resources that are costless to do. It's just changing a mindset and learning from others' mistakes that needs to be achieved.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get more onto these issues in just a moment. We're going to take a short break here. As we pause, let me remind you, you can join the conversation with your questions and comments by logging on to livestation.com and entering the chat room. You'll see the debate taking place in there right now. We'll be right back.